Hello, I'm Alan Matthews from Classical Guitar Shed, and we're going to answer the question, what is classical guitar? It's just one of those big questions, and it can be baffling if you don't know, but it'll be easy once you do know, and you will after this video. If you enjoy it, please subscribe to this channel and click the little bell for the notifications. All right, hang on tight, because here we go. What is classical guitar? Well, the classical guitar is a few things. First off, it's an instrument. It's a particular way of playing an instrument. It's a particular style of learning the instrument, and it's also a type of music. So with all of these different four things, it's no wonder that it gets confusing sometimes just to know what is it. So to begin with, the instrument. A classical guitar is different than a steel string acoustic guitar or an electric guitar in a couple of different ways. First off, we have these nylon strings on the top meaning closest to the floor, that we have these nylon strings. They look like fishing line. They pretty much are fishing line. And they have a particular sound to them. And then we have the wound bass strings, 3 bass strings. And then we also tie them back here and up here so they don't have ball ends like steel string acoustics do. We also, the tuning pegs up here, they look a little bit different, right? So it's got a different look to the headstock up here. The neck is wider. It's a lighter build generally. So if you put steel string acoustic strings on this, the tension could be too much. It might just pull the bridge right on off. It's just a different thing. So it's a lighter build. It's under less tension. And so that makes it easier to play for a lot of beginners. The strings are softer. They're not such like tight wire that cut into your fingers. So it's a little gentler on the fingers at first for beginners. And also that width of the neck allows us to play with our right hand. Allows us to get in there and get our fingers between the right hand. Also, the difference too is that classical guitars are overall a little bit smaller than steel string acoustic guitars. The body is smaller generally than steel string acoustic guitars, except for like parlor guitars and things like that. But a general rule is it's a little bit smaller. Speaking of the right hand being able to get up into those strings, that is one of the things that classical guitar has that is different than other types, which is we play with the right hand fingers. Now, of course, you can play with the pick on a classical guitar, the instrument. An electric guitar player could pick up a classical guitar and play it because they play the guitar. It'll feel a little bit different, but all the notes are the same. But with classical guitar technique, and so playing classical guitar, we use both hands, the fingers, instead of using a pick. And we do that to play music. That way we can have a melody and bass, and we can play different things at different. We can play all these different notes with our fingers instead of using a pick, and that is classical guitar technique. We oftentimes too, with the technique, we lift the neck up like this so it's easier to get up underneath with your hand. It's instead of keeping it down here, we have to do this. And so there's a lot of great things to classical guitar technique that also serve other things. So even if you're playing a steel string acoustic or an electric, classical guitar technique is just the study of how to play it most effectively and most efficiently, best on your body, so that you can play this thing as well as possible. So that is what classical guitar technique is. It's really beneficial for all styles of music, regardless of the actual music. Here's another thing that is classical guitar, the study of classical guitar. Typically, we play composed music. So instead of improvising, you can improvise on a classical guitar, and classical guitarists do improvise. But as a general rule, we play composed music. So we play pieces that a composer has worked out and scripted out for us. So most of the time, then we're playing music that we did not write. And there are exceptions, but typically it's very difficult to find a composer who's also a really good guitarist. Most of the really good guitarists, it takes all the time and then they don't have time to compose. And most of the good composers, it's exactly the opposite. They spend all their time composing and don't really have time to be great on the guitar. They might be proficient. But with few exceptions, that is the case. So we play composed music, we read music, and we play pieces. And then speaking of music, we have the difference, and this is where really people get confused on the whole notion of classical in general is that we think of classical, whenever we say the word classical, we think of powdered wigs and wool tights and Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, and opera and Kill the Wabbit and all these things that we have in our head, Gothic columns and old world stuff from the 1700s. So that is not necessarily what classical guitar is. Classical guitar are these other things. We can play modern music, we can play world music, we can play anything on classical guitar, that it doesn't have to be just classical music. Oftentimes classical music is composed music. So we can instead think of it as concert music. That's another, I know one guitarist who he says he plays concert guitar. He doesn't like the term classical guitar because it infers this type of thing, just like romantic music. Well, the romantic could be from the Romantic period, which was in the 1800s, or it could be romantic like rose in my teeth and a glass of champagne ready for you. So it can be different things. So it's no wonder that it gets confusing. So I'm a big fan of classical guitar because it is such a wide field. You can play like South American music, you can play, there's anything. You can play like oud music from the Middle East, which there's some amazing guitarists that are crossover in that way. There's Japanese and other Asian musics. It's everything and anything from all periods, modern to the very old, and you can play things from like very old stuff or very new stuff. And so it's everything in between. I have a buddy, Cecilio, who plays Iron Maiden covers, and he does solo arrangements of them and all kind of like 80s rock tunes, and he makes amazing classical guitar arrangement. He's an amazing classical guitarist. And he just rips these things out, and it's all this like 80s rock music, solo guitar, and he just makes these beautiful arrangements of it. It is mind-blowing, and it's great. And so yes, that is classical guitar, but it's Iron Maiden. So is it classical music? Well, you decide. This has been a foray into what is the classical guitar. It's the instrument, it's the technique, it's the act of studying, reading music, and becoming a better musician, active practice and intentional practice. And it's also any style of music that you choose it to be. Hope you've enjoyed this. Please subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.